Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? Hope that everybody is doing well. With the vaccines progressing and with the virus subsiding in many places and many places reopening, and with the spring weather, I really hope that you are doing well. And I wanted to speak today a little bit about the true meaning of surrender. We will start a 3-week program very soon on that topic, starting on April 25th. What is the true meaning of surrender? And the role of surrender in awakening and in freedom. So we may have a lot of understanding and misunderstanding about what surrender is. And that really will depend on what kind of life experience or conditioning we have so far. Your understanding or misunderstanding of surrender can be conscious or unconscious. You may be aware of it or not. We might have some fear that surrender means surrendering to somebody or something. Sometimes people have a fear that surrender means being controlled by somebody or something. And sometimes in the spiritual world, we see surrender more as external gestures, like we see people prostrating to a teacher. We see people putting their forehead to the feet of the teacher, which really is a sign of admiration or a sign of, admiration for somebody. And surrender, external sign of surrender. But when I'm speaking about surrender, I'm really speaking about the mind merging in the heart. So I will say it again. When I'm speaking about surrender, I'm speaking about the mind merging in the heart. And so what is mind? Mind is thought. That's what mind is, thoughts. I, the sense of I, ego, mind, all one and the same thing. What is heart? Heart is our true nature. Heart with a capital H. Heart is our true nature. It's consciousness, it's bliss. Is that which is the substratum of all experience. So consciously or not, day by day, we rely on the mind as a source of our information. So consciously or not, we treat the mind as if it was in charge, because we rely on, the information that comes from the mind. That also so often is a sense of our identity. We identify ourselves as thought or thoughts, or as the sense of I, or as the body, mind, ego, sense of I. And so if you are aware of it or not, by following the mind, by relying on it as our source of information, we really de facto make it in charge of our experience. So as we move forward in the spiritual path, our attention starts to move inward. That's what really forward or progress means on the spiritual path. Our attention starts to move inward. So we start to move away from the sensory experiences, which are senses are the outskirts of the mind. The farthest regions, the outskirts of the mind, the senses. So we start to move away from the sensory experiences. And we start to move more and more inward and become more and more quiet or quieted over time. So eventually we encounter what many of you have experienced, which is so-called quiet mind, right? There are times, moments, longer periods of time when the mind is quiet, when there's no thought, or there's not much thought, or there's no engagement with thought. And yet in that quiet mind, that's already good, right? That's really a step inward, step forward, right? And yet in that quiet mind, that's the name suggests itself. The quiet mind means the mind is still here. It's still that very almost undetectable veil of the mind still remains here, right? So there will be periods of mind, quiet mind, and then periods of not so quiet mind, right? But eventually, as we progress farther inward, there's that moment or moments or times or longer periods of time of surrender, where the mind merges in our true nature. And that is called no mind. That is called, that's the moment when we start to experience the bliss of our true nature. Where there's not just quiet mind, but there's also, now there's the blissfulness of our true nature. That's when the mind is merging in the heart. And every night when we go to sleep, we experience that. Unconsciously for most of the time. First of all, when you go to sleep at night, you have to really let go of everything. That's another part we will be practicing together in this 3-week intensive is, to realize that nothing really belongs to us. Nothing is permanent, right? When you are falling asleep at night, consciously or not, and you could bring a little more awareness to this as we go along, consciously or not, you have to let go of everything, right? You can't keep any possessions, you can't keep any thoughts, you can't keep any relations, you can't even keep your own body. You can't even keep the mind, right? You have to let go of everything to be able to fall asleep. And then the mind moves from the waking stage into the dream stage. Sometimes we are aware of the dream state or not. And then eventually it merges in our true nature. Every night there is that shorter or longer period of surrender. And then eventually the mind emerges back and through the dream state, into the waking state, into the awareness of the body. And then we wake up, right? Wake up in the morning. And then we are awake. Oh yeah, we are here, right? However, without that period of merging in the bliss of our true nature, we would not be able to function, right? So what we want now, we want to experience that while in the waking state. What we experience every night, naturally. Most of the time, because if we don't, for a prolonged period of time, we would just go insane, right? We wouldn't be able to function. So we want to experience that while we are in the waking stage. And there are many things that we can learn, many more things that I will be speaking about, that we can learn about what really helps us, what really leads us to surrender to that moment in which the mind merges in the heart and we experience the bliss of our true nature. So I want to invite you to join me in our upcoming program, and if you are enjoying these videos, I want to invite you to subscribe and share.